This is the end of something. I mean, I know it's the beginning of something next Sunday in the new building, but it's also the end of something for our family, right? For the last 18 months, we've done things one way, and after today, we're not going to do them that way anymore. After today, we're not going to be the church that worships in a gym. After today, we're not going to be the church that worships in a gym with leaky roof. Y'all remember the leaky roof days? That was fun. We had trash cans set up all along this side of the wall, catching the water falling in from the rain outside. We're not going to be the church that worships with random fires breaking out mid-service, or breakers flipping mid-service and the music and everything just stopping, all of a sudden. We're not going to be the church with 40-degree wind chills, I hope, anymore. We're not going to be setting up and tearing down our stuff every single week. We're not going to be baptizing people in a horse trough anymore, I don't think. It's not even our horse trough. We had to borrow a horse trough to baptize people in. That's what we've been to this point. Our coffee team, God bless them, they're not going to have to lug 40 pounds of ice down a 200-yard hallway every single Sunday, setting up a temporary coffee bar for all of us to get our, drug fix in the morning. They're not going to have to do that. We're going to have our own nice new ice maker over there making the ice for us on the spot. Our staff is not going to have to office in a place not even God can find, and much less Jimmy John's can't find it either. But hopefully that's about to change. Everything is about to change, mostly for the better. All this is good stuff, man. We're going to enter into this season full of excitement and joy. But I think it's also going to come with a bit of stress, maybe even a little sadness, because all change comes with some grief, even good change. Think about those of you who have kids, taking your kid to his or her first day of kindergarten. It's a good change. It's better than the alternative. Getting them in kindergarten, if you go to public school, is like getting a raise all of a sudden. Like, you don't have to pay anybody to take care of your kid. It's great. But stand outside any elementary school on the first day of classes, and everyone is crying. Moms, dads, kids, teachers. It's like a funeral. It's like, who died? It's a good change. Going to kindergarten is better than the alternative, I suppose. But every change is hard. And I think a time like this, particularly a Sunday like this, it's good for us to just step back and take stock of who we are, why we do this. I hope it's not just for religion. I hope it's not just for dogma or institution or socializing. For my heart to come alive at church, it's got to be more than just that. I hope some of you feel the same way. I think this is a good chance for us to stop and say, well, why are we doing this? What does this church mean to us? A few years back, I was leading a church membership class, and I asked that very question to the 14 people that were gathered there that night. What does this church mean to you? And most of the answers were pretty typical, what you would expect at any given church membership class. This church aligns with my values. My kids love it here. I like to eat donuts and drink coffee during worship. All the stuff that we hear at casual churches like this. There was one young woman there whose answer stood out. It didn't stand out at first, because at first all she said was, this church is like a family to me. And everybody kind of thought, yeah, okay, it's one more thing you're supposed to say at a church membership class. But then we all remembered what that young woman had told us an hour before. As we went around the room talking about ourselves, sharing a little bit about who we are, Leah, this woman, 27 years old, tall and slender with tattoos all over her body, who was a law student at the time and working her way through law school as a Starbucks barista. Leah told us about her family. She told us about how her family had never worked for her. She never met her birth father. Her birth father and her mother split up while her mom was pregnant with her before she was born. Never met her. Her mom had a couple of other marriages, fall apart within a few years each. And she had a series of men come in and out of her life. You know, her mom's boyfriends, her sister's boyfriends, cousins, uncles. And she says at one point when she was 14, she was propositioned or assaulted by a family member. Leah's family was broken. And so when Leah says, for me, it's like a family, my ears kind of perked up. And then she said, before the moment passed, she said, it's like a family, but it's like one that actually works. And that phrase, the church is a family that works, has stuck with me ever since. And people kind of laughed awkwardly around the circle because we all knew what she meant because of everything that she had just told us about her family. But we also know that when Leah says the church is a family that actually works, we know that Leah is not alone. Her family was broken and hers wasn't the only one. Leah is in the majority, right? Today, in Houston, 2 out of every 3 kids that will be born to single mothers. The overwhelming majority of people under 30 in America have been or are being raised in what you might call non-traditional homes, non-traditional families. What we have seen over the last 40 or 50 years in America has been the slow and steady erosion of the nuclear traditional family. That's a given. That's obvious, right? But what's interesting and in some ways heartbreaking to me has been the church's response in the face of that erosion. Because what have we seen Christians, leading Christians, stand up and saying or preaching or writing on our blogs and in our magazines? I have seen us take a judgmental posture toward non-traditional families. Anyone who doesn't have that nuclear perfection or whatever is made to feel like they are being criticized or condemned by Christianity. And we just keep propping up that nuclear family as the biblical ideal for anyone and everyone. If you don't have that, then there's something wrong with you. And 2 things have happened as a result of that judgmental posture that the church has taken in light of the erosion of the traditional family, right? 2 things. First of all, we have given people outside the church and inside the church the impression that if you don't have that nuclear ideal, or if you didn't come from that, then you're missing something. If your parents aren't still married and in love and perfectly happy, if your parents divorced, then you're broken more than the rest of us. If you're single, if you're not married, then you're incomplete. If you're struggling with fertility and don't have kids, then your life's not quite, started yet. If you come from one of the non-traditional families, if you're divorced, we love you, we'll pray for you, but you're not going to live that down so easily. You know what I mean? If for example, you're living with your boyfriend, living with your girlfriend, you can come to church, but we might hold you at arm's length. You know how many couples I've met and married this year that have been rejected by their home churches because they wouldn't do their wedding for them because they're living together and they're wanting to make it right and get married? They're not allowed to at their home church. This is the message we continually send. So people feel like we're standing on a pedestal and looking down, right? Second thing that happens is that by taking this posture, we have put way too much pressure on the nuclear families that do exist. So those of us that are involved in what you might call the perfect, ideal, nuclear traditional family, there's way too much pressure. None of us can live up to that standard. And so secretly, we all know we're failing at this. Now, we don't act like we're failing because we hide all our mess behind closed doors. But secretly inside, we think we're not doing this right because we're not as happy as we should be, or we're not as happy as they seem to be. And so maybe there's something, wrong with us here, and we just cannot keep up. That's why people in traditional nuclear families criticize everybody else, because just for a minute it makes us feel like we're okay. Like we're a mess, but at least we're not. You know what I mean? Like it just for a minute makes us feel better about ourselves because we know we are a mess just like everyone else. It's just that our mess is in secret. Nuclear families have the benefit of hiding our mess, right? Instead of it being out in the open. No family can do that for very long. You remember probably when you were like a teenager? Remember that family you wanted to be a part of? Not your family, the other family you wanted to be a part of? Your friend's family or your neighbor's family? That family that just seemed so awesome. Because the kids got to play video games all the time and drink as much Coke as they wanted. And dad always seemed like he was fun and happy-go-lucky. And mom always seemed so put together and perfect, you know. And sister was so skinny and pretty, and brother was so popular. But when you're a youth, you think that's real. But then you grow up and you realize none of it was real. You pull back the curtain and you realize it was all just as fake as anything else, right? It was all just a ruse. It was an illusion. Dad was happy because he drank too much. You know, mom looked awesome because she spent too much. And sister was skinny because she never ate any food. And brother was popular because he sold his Adderall pills to his friends at school. Like, all four of those things, by the way, I've heard from real people in the last 6 weeks. Happening in real families in our zip codes. Because no family can live up to the standard we've propped up in the church. All families have issues. All families are broken. We all come from broken homes. Look at the person next to you, no matter who you are, where you're from, say, I'm from a broken home. Go ahead and say it. Say it to the person next to you. Just confess. Say, I'm from a broken home. And if that's hard for you to say, you're still living in the illusion that your family's perfect. And it's not. I think if you were to ask your non-Christian friends to describe the biblical family, they would describe a father who's a provider and kind of a disciplinarian, but a gentle one, a benevolent dictator, if you will. A mother who is submissive and who adores her husband and her kids, you know, and cooks like a chef, and a couple of kids that look great and act great and make great grades. You know, that's, I think, what people think when we talk about the biblical family. Have you ever read about the families in the Bible? Can any of you identify the family I just described in the Bible? There's not one. There's not one biblical family in the Bible. They're all a mess. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, is a series of stories about dysfunctional families. Highly dysfunctional families. When they deal with addictions and abuse and betrayal and adultery, all the things families struggle with today. I mean, Adam and Eve couldn't even build a healthy marriage, and there wasn't even any competition. Like, Adam didn't have some cute young thing at work, like tempting him to run away, you know, like it was just the two of them, and they couldn't figure it out. And the first homicide in human history, what was it? Sibling on sibling crime, right? You get, just in the first 4 chapters, families falling apart, and it just continues throughout the rest of the Bible. Even Jesus' family didn't have it all together, and we prop up, especially those of you raised in Catholic Church, you raise up the Jesus' family as the Holy Family. That's fine. I love you, Roman Catholic friends, brothers and sisters, but hey, that family had some issues. And it's really not hard to even find. It's in the Gospels. It's, when Jesus really starts up his ministry, he's teaching some stuff that gets some attention, and this is what happens. He said, when Jesus' family heard about the stuff he was up to, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. This is Mary and James and Jude, Jesus' brothers and sisters. He's out of his mind, they said about Jesus. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived, and standing outside, they sent someone in to call him, and a crowd was sitting out around him, and they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. Who are my mother and my brothers? Jesus asked. And then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and my sister and my mother. Jesus' nuclear family thought he was crazy, and they didn't believe in his dreams. Some of you know exactly what that feels like. Have a family not understand or support your calling in life. Jesus has been there, you know. If they had had their way with Jesus, he would have gone back home and gotten his construction job back and settled down with a nice Jewish girl and had a couple Jewish babies, and we would never heard of him if his family had his way with him. But Jesus had a certain calling, a certain purpose on his life, and he fulfilled it because he understood that he didn't just come to be part of a traditional nuclear family. You know, his family's just doing what they knew, right? For some reason, y'all might have noticed, Joseph's not around anymore. Joseph wasn't there with them. I think maybe Joseph had died by this time. That's my theory. And so it would have been incumbent upon Jesus as the firstborn son to go back and lead the nuclear family. It's what you did. But Jesus didn't come just to lead a nuclear family. Jesus came to bring us all together, all of our families together, into one larger, better family called the church. And that is what the Bible describes the church as. Guys, as we get ready for this next season of our church's life, I pray that we don't forget this simple fact. Before we are a religious group, before we are an institution, an organization, 501c3, any of the other stuff that we are a family called together under the headship of Jesus. Jesus is the head of household here. And because Jesus is the head of household, there is no difference among us that is irreconcilable. When Jesus is the head of household, there is no brokenness among us that can't be restored and healed. If Jesus is the head of household, and I pray that he is, when you pray about this church, I pray that you know Jesus is the head of household and not me or Pastor Gio or Pastor Tom or anyone else. But Jesus is the head of this house. When we submit to his lordship over our house, we become the family that Leah needed. A family that works, even for people that have never known a good family. In John chapter 17, Jesus says something extraordinary. He's praying, right? And they're recording his prayer as he prays, and he's praying for his disciples because he's worried about them after he leaves, right? After he's crucified and resurrected. And he says, God, I pray for their unity. I pray that they would be united, because if they remain united, then the world will believe what they say about me. If they remain united, if Christians remain together, the world will hear them and believe what they say about Jesus. That's a pretty radical statement. And as our culture has become less and less centered around, Jesus, you have to wonder if part of that is because we as Christians have not held together enough. You have to wonder if it's because we have allowed worldly issues, political issues, things like that, creep into our life together and separate us, instead of letting Jesus be at the head of our household, holding us together. Because Jesus said the world will believe us if we hold together, because the world is so used to being divided. Just watch cable news for 90 seconds. The world is so used to being divided down the middle. Unity comes as a shock. When we hold together, the world pays attention. Now, you can look around the room right now. You may not know everyone here, but you can go ahead and make the healthy assumption that there are things in this room right now that would normally divide people. There are differences of opinion. How about college football? We can start there. Differences in our loyalties as fans. You can also talk about ideology, politics. We're entering into a political season. It's going to be very real over the next couple of months. Those kinds of things divide some families. About a third of the room right now, this is probably the most politically diverse congregation I've ever been a part of. A third of the room is with her. Probably a third of the room is with him. There's a third of the room that's just cowering in the fetal position in the corner, terrified by the prospect of either of them being president. But will we allow our differences of political opinion divide us, come between us, separate us? Absolutely not. Because Jesus is bigger than those things. Jesus is bigger than those pet political issues that drive other families, other groups of people apart. Because we are founded on the grace of Jesus, there is nothing that will come between us. There is nothing on earth that will separate us, because in the light of the cross, our political differences are reconcilable differences. As I look back on our 18 months here together, guys, some of my most profound and favorite memories are of the baptisms that we've celebrated here. All of them were precious. Babies that I have held and presented to you, nearly dropped a couple of them. Adults that I've plunged beneath sub-zero waters. Every single moment has been sacred and precious. You realize in the last 6 months alone, we have either baptized or welcomed into the Christian family 69 people in 6 months. 69 people have given their lives to Jesus. What an amazing season this has been. The baptisms especially stand out, not just because of the water and the people that we baptize, but because of the promises that are made. And sometimes I worry that we rush through those promises and y'all don't really let them soak in. You just say the words instead of really understanding what it is you're agreeing to. And I hope that we as a community can take those promises seriously, because you make promises to people being baptized, to their parents if they're children, you know. And these are promises you're expected to keep as a community. These are radical things. You're promising to surround someone with a community of love, a community of forgiveness, a community that builds such a sense of trust in them that they grow in their love of God, a community of accountability so that you not only welcome them in, but you push them out to serve the world in Jesus' name. We promise to raise up children and adults who follow Jesus passionately with their whole hearts, their whole lives. We are promising to do that as a community, and some of y'all are thinking, I don't even know the person being baptized. I don't even know those people on the screens. How can I make a promise like that to someone I don't even know? You might not even, like somebody that's getting baptized. How can we make these promises in good conscience? We make these promises because that's exactly how family works. A good family works when we understand that we don't love someone because we chose them. We don't love someone because we know them. We don't love someone because we like them. We love someone because Jesus first loved us. We welcome someone into the fold because Jesus welcomed us into the fold. Even when we didn't deserve it, when we were sinners and lost and all that stuff, Jesus welcomed us and loved us. And so we welcome and we love without condition, without a litmus test, without a theology quiz. We love and we welcome in Jesus' name, and we make these promises because Jesus came to call us together, to show a city full of broken homes that there's still a family that works. He came to show Leah and everyone like Leah there's still a home that's unbroken. There's still a place where she belongs. No matter what your family background is, you might be really proud of your family. God might have blessed you with one of those ideal American dream families. That's awesome. God bless you. There's probably secrets you don't know about, but God bless you. I'm sure your family's great. Most of you do not come from that perfect ideal family. When you bring that pain and that incompleteness to Jesus, He shows you a family, gives you a family that works. Whatever happens in the next season, I pray that we remain humble. That in the new space we're going into, Jesus is still the head of our house. And that in our unity, we will make Him known. By our community, by our family, the way that we love each other, the world, the city of Houston will listen and believe in this Jesus who calls us together. In the next few months, it's going to be crazy. Chaotic, hectic, and stressful, and fun. But let's stick together. Let's remain one family. We're losing some of who we are. But we're not going to lose that. Our togetherness, our family in Jesus. Let's go to him in prayer.